Hi friends, it's so good to see you today. I hope that you're having a wonderful day. In today's video, we are going to be beginning a sort of sub-series that is going to be a part of my series of videos on jump chains, wherein we explore different settings using an alt chain rule sets. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term alt chain, an alt chain simply refers to a jump chain wherein there are significant alterations to the traditional rules. For example, one of the central focuses of this particular alt chain is going to be the usage of the questing system, which is something that I have created, which allows jumpers to gain items and powers and companions from a setting narratively as opposed to just getting them using choice points. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that at the end of this particular video, and it is entirely possible that this video will not cover the sum total of time that our new jumper is going to be spending in this one particular setting, and that instead we will focus on telling longer term stories using this particular rule set, where we focus and explore any given setting a little bit more in depth than we would in a video with Luciano the Jumper, wherein we might just take a look at the jump doc and summarize the things that are going to happen over the course of the story, or even focus on build details as opposed to telling a story, so that way people can understand what doing a jump chain looks like. This is going to be an example of an alt chain, and I'm very excited to begin to tell this story with you. I hope that you enjoy the particular editing style that I have in mind for this. It is mostly a joke, but I do quite like the idea of having these visuals in this particular format. So here's hoping that the way that I managed to edit this does not make this a complete nightmare. I hope that you all have a wonderful day, and as always, if you enjoy the video, feel free to leave a like, and if you have not subscribed, please do. I want to be a professional YouTuber, and hitting 1,000 subscribers is a critical component of beginning to be able to become a YouTube partner. The story begins on a cold, wintry night in a small town in Colorado. Right near a road are three people who do not know each other, but whose lives are about to begin to intersect and interact in very unique ways. One of the people is one of the last wizards in the world, a figure who has stylized himself as an arcane recluse who occasionally goes into town to buy simple things like food or alcohol while he is not immersing himself in his particular speciality, which is the creation of localized gateways to other worlds and even other universes. The other person is a young college student who attends the local community college. And the final person is a truck driver driving an experimental truck that is known and thought to be nearly silent. The way that these particular lives are about to crash and intersect is going to be quite literal, as the moment that the arcane recluse steps onto the road, he is too close to the truck to step off in time, and the truck driver is busy checking a very urgent text message. The truck driver will look up just in time to see the recluse, who is at the moment drunk, and it is too late for the truck driver to go ahead and stop the truck in time. The truck crashes into the arcane recluse and sends him flying off the road. The college student happens to see this, and when the truck driver drives off, panically runs over to the arcane hermit, trying to see if there's any possibility of reviving the figure. He is distraught to learn that it is absolutely too late, and that even in the time it took him to reach the arcane hermit is already on the verge of passing away. Blood is filling his lungs, and his body is a shattered, mangled heap. He looks at the student and gives him a set of keychains. The student looks at the man, wondering if the man has just lost his mind in his last moments, and the hermit tells him that he needs to visit his cabin. That the student needs to go to the cabin, absolutely, as soon as he possibly can. He even instructs the student to leave his body there if that's what it takes to get to the cabin faster, but that the cabin is only a short walk away, and he begs the student to go and find someone in the cabin named Cynthia, and to talk to her, and to tell her what has happened. The wizard then passes away, and the student, distraught at what he has seen, decides to try to fulfill the wizard's dying wish. The town that the boy is from is a small place, and the boy, only barely a man, just beginning his 19th year of life, has only ever lived in the town. On occasion, he's ventured into the great forest that surrounds the town on all sides, but it is incredibly rare for him to do so. Nonetheless, he is determined to fulfill the wizard's dying wish, so he boldly ventures into the forest. As he does, he is unaware of the fact that the keychains have begun to glow. Unbeknownst to him, the keychains have begun to infuse him with a little bit of the magic that was infused into them when they were first created. This is going to have significant ramifications on the young man's life in the near future. But for now, all it does is allow him to vaguely hear eldritch whisperings as he wanders the woods. Strange voices form an unusual and unnatural sounding chorus in the back of his mind. Nonetheless, this chorus diligently guides him, urging him to go in one direction. And he walks, and he walks, and he walks, until he finally stumbles across a cabin. The cabin is located just a few miles away from where the young man watched the wizard die, but in the time that it has taken him to reach it, he feels as though hours have passed, but in truth, it's been less than half an hour. Something about the cabin feels familiar to him. He is unconsciously aware of the fact that an esoteric miasma surrounds the cabin. He decides that it is up to him to fulfill the wizard's wish. Up until this point, he has been uncertain, but now, seeing the cabin, realizing that he has made it here, and vaguely aware of the strange whisperings which still surround him, he decides to go and knock on the door. When he reaches the cabin's front door, he sees a figure looking at him through a window. The figure darts out of view, and it waits until he knocks on the door before it opens it. There is an awkward silence for a moment as the young man looks at the woman that he knows in his heart is Cynthia. She is a tall, beautiful blonde woman, and she looks at him fearfully, unsure of what it is that he wants. She is not used to people other than the wizard frequenting the cabin. In fact, the wizard is one of the only people she's seen in many years. The young man looks at her and tells her that something terrible has happened, and she nods. She opens the door more fully, allowing the young man to see the inside of the cabin and notice that there's a door which doesn't quite make sense. The cabin should, by all accounts, be only 1 or 2 rooms, but there's a door right next to the fireplace. She invites him in, and the two of them walk immediately to that door. When they step through it, the young man finds himself in a large room, one surrounded by doors, a large number of doors. It takes him a second, but he counts 11 in total. Coincidentally, that is the same number of keychains that he now has. He looks at this curiously before Cynthia asks him to explain what he meant by saying something terrible had happened. And when he remembers why he's here, his countenance immediately darkens. He looks at her and explains what happened, and that he came here because the wizard though the young man doesn't know that the wizard is a wizard, asked him to, and asked him to tell her specifically that this was happening. She saddens when she hears this news, and she nods at him. And for some reason, something very strange happens in this moment. The instant that she finishes nodding at the boy, a strange text box appears in his field of view. The text box asks him a question. It asks him if he would like to go on a chain. The silence while our central hero studies this strange floating screen. And as the silence lingers, Cynthia begins to smile. "You can see it, can't you?" she asks, rather ominously. And even though our young protagonist considers lying for a second, he eventually nods. And this causes her to let out a quiet, sad laugh. "So, it's true then. He really did choose you. Or, I guess choosing is too strong a word, but he has bequeathed you his inheritance. Do me a favor and get out the keychains," she asks. He does as she asks, and to his surprise, they are glowing. He stuffed them in his pockets when he first got them, so that way they wouldn't weigh him down, and that was the reason he never noticed that they were glowing. But all 11 of them are radiating clear light. It is so much that it actually partially illuminates the somewhat dark room that the two of them are sitting in. Cynthia is quiet for a long time as she studies the keychains. And then she looks at our young hero, and she asks him a question. "Are you going to go on the chain?" she asks. This confuses our hero, because he has no idea what a chain is. He looks at her and explains as much, and this makes her eyes widen. She is quiet as she takes in this news before she mutters a realization aloud. This world has never heard of jump chains. And this causes our young hero's eyes to widen. He asks her to explain what it is that she's talking about. And so she begins to reveal the nature of the Omniverse. Omniverse is impossibly vast. Omniversal explorers, known to some as jumpers, travel through it, aided by powerful creatures known as benefactors. A benefactor is responsible for connecting Cynthia and the wizard. And a benefactor, the very same benefactor, is responsible for giving the wizard the ability that he had to travel throughout the Omniverse. He took this power and he studied it, and it was because of his research into it that he began to be able to make the keychains that he has made, which are giving our hero some small vestige of his powers. Cynthia notes this, and she reveals it to our hero. She also reveals that the Omniverse is divvied up into sections known as planiverses. Planiverses are themselves made up of multiverses, each of which contains uncountable trillions of universes inside of it. Omniversal explorers go from place to place, accruing powers, building items, gaining skills, and acquiring friends and family until they eventually gain the power to become benefactors themselves and sponsor the next generation of explorers. The benefactor that was the patron of the creature known as the wizard, who Cynthia reveals was only somewhat human. was super interested in the magic systems that could be found throughout the Omniverse. And so it instructed the wizard to be focused on those magic systems. It instructed the wizard to focus on understanding the magical ley lines, the energies, the disciplines of magic, and more that exist throughout the Omniverse. The wizard gradually became a genius over the course of his countless adventures, and very recently he met Cynthia in a distant universe, and he asked her to join him on his journey. The two of them have only been together for 25 years, and in that time they have seen a handful of universes, including the ones that wait behind the doors that surround the two of them. But Cynthia says that until our hero decides to go on a chain, it is dangerous to allow him through those doors. Most beings, especially beings without the protections of benefactors, cannot withstand universal energies. And so trying to enter another universe will have mysterious and almost invariably harmful effects on them, even if those effects are not necessarily directly visible or immediately apparent. Cynthia assures our hero that she is shielding him from these doors for his own protection, and that just being in the presence of gateways is not harmful. It's the act of going through them that exposes someone to the energies that they radiate. She says that she would love to show our hero other places, but that can only happen if our hero decides to go on the chain, decides to go on the journey that the mysterious benefactor is offering it to go on. It takes him a long time, and he asks many different questions, but eventually our hero says yes. Our hero decides to embark on this journey and to potentially explore the depths of the Omniverse. And the second he does this, he feels the true power of the keychains begin to imbue him with the magics that were stored within them. As this happens, our hero is forever changed, and he gains true access to his first set of perks, the magic systems as well as science from the world of a wizard's keychain. As this is happening, he is informed that he is being given access to the essence of the scholar, one of the powerful essences tied to the essential body mod, and that in time he may eventually unlock other essences. But for now, the central change that occurs is that he feels his mind increase and improve in capacity and in every feasible way, even as his body is subtly changed by the energies that his benefactor pours into him at the moment of his acceptance of the offer to go on the chain. Cynthia watches as he is forever changed, and she smiles as our hero notices a mental timer appear at the very edge of his vision that begins to tick downward. It takes the figure a second to do the mental math on the sheer number of seconds that the thing began with, but he notices that it began counting down with a number of seconds equal to how many seconds are in a decade. And every second that passes, that number gradually goes down and down. And so our hero asks Cynthia one very important question. What will happen when it hits 0? Cynthia smiles sadly, and then she says that the two of them will go to another world. They are not given choices in where to go, but when they appear in a new world, there are some new powers and some new properties that are already theirs. Cynthia has gone to enough universes to be familiar with this process, and she says that 10 years is a long time, but when every decade you go to a new place, it passes in the blink of an eye. She also notes that she had already been here for 5 years, so it's interesting that the timer seems to have reset now that our hero has become a jumper. But she says that 15 years in the long run is not a whole lot more than 10. Still, she's happy that she's going to get to spend some more time here. And then she asks our hero what sort of environment he prefers. She asks him if he likes urban cityscapes, giant malls, battlefields, frozen wastes and snow-covered villages, beautiful tropical islands, mysterious caves filled with gemstones, and a handful of other sample staple environments that he could choose from. It takes him a second to answer, but eventually he says that he is especially fond of giant caves, and this causes Cynthia to smile. Hi, welcome to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this, I'm so happy that you did. We are definitely going to be doing more videos in this series. I decided to make the initial time frame of the first video just a little bit shorter than I would have actually liked to make, so that way we could get a little bit more into the details. Future videos are definitely going to have larger time skips and stuff, but for those of you who are curious as to the exact meta details of all of this, this is a jumper who has access to the essential body modification supplements. They have the essence of the scholar rather than the essence of the archmage, because their world and their experiences were focused on studying rather than focusing on magic, and I decided to make the essence a part of them rather than a part of everything else. We are going to talk a little bit more about stuff in the future, but this is the world of the Wizard's Keychain. The very first setting that we are going to be going into the Wizard's Keychain is the Delve. Our next video in this series, which is going to come out at some point in the near future, is going to talk about that world, and we're going to take some time in the setting. I don't think that we're going to have a huge number of videos in this particular jump, but I do like the idea of focusing and taking some time to actually be intimate and detailed about a setting that we're visiting, rather than doing the very sort of screenshotty style things that we've been doing. I am very fond of this idea. I very much enjoyed the editing style that we did. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. I know that visually it was a bit of an experience. I am so excited to get to do future videos in the series, and I hope that this is as well received as I think it could be. As a reminder, we're using the questing system. We are going to be talking about perks, and odds are at the end of videos I will be talking about the perks that our jumper acquired. I am hoping that we are going to gradually go to other worlds in the series. My plan is not to focus extraordinarily in depth in any particular setting, but I definitely love the idea of going to a place and actually having more than one video in it before we hop over to the next setting, so that way we can have time to get to know our young hero in this particular case, and get to know Cynthia and get to see some of the Wizard Keychain's magics. I'm so excited. I hope that you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you again soon.